In this video help, I'm going to be covering the service inventory, but I'm going to be doing the sub-screens or child screens. But before I do that, I want to do a little recapping. We had these popovers on this side of the screen, and I want to go through those. For example, if you look at the service inventory item, it shows you the individual vendor or the vendor list that you have for this particular set or this item itself, and you can choose from the list of items that are in there that are all present. If you add a new vendor, do not repeat vendors. In other words, you put them in once and they should be in there one time, not more than once, unless they're different locations. Technical data, that was a technical data where you could add specification information for installation or usage of the actual item. The service order, now this is the order where you're actually ordering this inventory item, but it's not in this screen where you order it. There's an actual thing in there where you're going to actually order the item. If you click on the portal button, it will take you to that particular order item from this portal. The next one is the service work order, which is in the next section of videos that we're going to be doing. Basically what this is it shows you each service work order that has used this part in some location. And if you click on this or the work order, it's going to take you one to the portal for this item, and this one will take you to the service work order for that item where it was located as far as within a service work order. Okay, let's go through and we're going to go down through the items in the list here. We're in the asset inventory service area right now for inventory. We're going to look at the list view. The list view should carry all the items that are listed as far as items in the inventory. So this is the inventory listing, and this would be the individual maintenance or service items. You'll notice in here, and I want to point out that you can actually put things in there that are like labor, scheduling, and other things that would be a charge item that would be charged against that particular item that is being ordered or serviced as far as servicing. So if you're doing something where it's taking time and it's similar to labor, but it's scheduling or other kinds of things that are related to things like that, I usually put a number in front of the actual part number for the item because that'll bring them to the top of the list so you don't have to hunt down through all the items in the parts list and service list in order to find them. So one will bring them all the way to the top of the list. You may find things that are like outside services where you have to do something outside services, and that's going to be put on the invoice. It'd be a number one, outside services as far as the item. And then of course the item type would be the item type that you assign in the inventory record itself. You can do a find in here obviously as far as doing search for something. Obviously I would use either the service ID or the part number is the fastest way to find them. And then if you need to, you can use the used on as far as finding. And if you click on something that's a used on item, you'll notice how it will drop down, or if you tap on it, it should open up to show you all the data for that particular item in a spool out. It'll come out to the side on the iPad or iPhone. On the desktop, it'll do the same thing as I'm doing with the cursor here where it'll drop down. Let's go ahead and look at the next item in the list, which is the inventory order. Now this is where you're actually doing orders. Now this is not the print order. This is where you're editing it and adding information to the order. What you would do is you would go ahead over here and create a new order, because this is a parent record for the orders, not for the inventory itself, but for the orders. This is like the purchasing screen is what you would do. And this is the main screen for the purchasing where you would pick the vendor from the drop-down list. I only have one vendor here now, but you'd have multiple ones in there if you've added them, and you'd pick whatever vendor you want. And if you key in the first letters of a vendor, it'll shorten the list down to ones that match the key that you hit, so it's easier to find them in the list. The next thing is if you're doing an order, there may be shipping involved. It is a charge against the actual order. If you put in the shipping, it's going to be added in there as a separate item in the subtotal so that you'll have it. So you'll have both of these items together. This is the actual cost of the items, and then the shipping will then be summarized into the actual record sum, order record sum. And you can see 25 and 390 is 415. And that would be where you would have the information from each row that you add within this edit area. Now this is not the print version of this. If you look over here, you'll see that you have an inventory print order that I set out to the side to make it obvious that this is right next to the inventory order, but this would be the print version. So if I go over here, that's what the print invoice would look like. This is an 8.5 by 11 page, and it'll actually squeeze even on probably an A4 as well. You can actually reduce this if you have a laser printer. If you have a smaller image that you want to actually print to that's a different paper size, you can go ahead and set the paper size in the print setup to be what you want. And you would do that by going in here to print setup. And in this particular case, it'll bring up the print setup, and then you would go ahead and modify this to fit that particular print setting. And then you would go into the print itself and print the record, and then this would be for printing the record and setting it up for that. You can also do paper size in here. If you tap on this, it gives you US legal, A4, A5, envelope, and tabloid. And you can do more, and this would be a custom size. So you can do a custom size if you need to. You also have orientation where you can set up portrait and landscape, and that is available, but you got to make sure when you go into print again that you change it back to whatever you want it to be, or it'll print the wrong scale as far as the size and everything. So you want to make sure. Now, like this is 100%. You have 25, 50, 100, 200, 400, and then fit to the exact size that you need. And the last one is at dots per inch. Depending on the resolution of the printer that you're using, you can set this to the highest or drop it down to use less ink if you need to. And you can also save these as a PDF. And you click here, you can either view it as a PDF, send it in an email as a PDF, or save it as a PDF. It's your choice. So there's a lot of options you have in there. And if you click print, it's going to print right from the screen and go right into the print mode. You need, if you're not directly hooked, you would obviously have to have a Wi-Fi printer or like an HP print or something like that that would print that particular screen record. And you can see what it's doing. It's adding each individual record item. It's doing the shipping and the subtotal and the grand total. And obviously you can see what these are as far as the items. Now there's a reduction in the actual number of fields in here because this is all that's required for the invoice that you would be printing for record keeping. It would obviously have the information for whoever the vendor was. And up here, this is what is called a global input field. You put your own company name up here, and what it'll do is every time you print or set up for a inventory work order, that information for your company will be in here. The order date is taken from the actual edit screen, and this is also locked, so you can't change it, so it's coming from the edit screen as well. Let's go back to the inside here. We're looking at the order list view now. This is the order item list view. And this is each individual order with the list view where you can click on it and go see those individual orders. And this is a different order where you're editing it with different totals and all that information on it. While we're back here, this one I believe has an RMA on it. No, it's the other one. Let's back up one record. The way you would do that is go prior record. And now look at the RMA. And there's an RMA entered in here. The RMA is the date of the RMA, and this is the actual item part number for the RMA, the quantity that's missing or damaged, the actual cost of the item, the RMA value, the RMA received item. If you actually received the replacement item, would have a 1 in here for the one that was replaced, and then the value. If you do not get the one back and you take this off here, it's going to change the way that the totals. And you can see now that it says RMA value balance, meaning that you have not received the actual item back. And the value now for it is 0, meaning that this is the item's value, but this is the value that you have not received. And this will be in the report as far as what is actually still out there and what is not received. And this is the record where you can come in here and edit this if you need to. Let's go back down to the next item, which is the portal image for the inventory. And so this is the individual record. If you do a find in here and you're looking for the individual record, this is where you would do the find from the portal, and you would go into the search, start search, and then perform it based on either one of these items or multiples of these. For example, you could put in the item order ID and the order date, and then you'd put in either the part number, enough of the part number where you could find it, or any or part of that. You could put any part of this that you want to put in there to find that particular item. Let's go now to the next thing, which is the Rma Inventory Portal. Now this is the one we were just in, but I want to recap and make sure that you know that's where it is on the list when we're going down. Then there's the Rma List View. Now this is the one that's so important. When you're in here and you have an item that's flagged with this color, that means that you have not received the value or the return item or replacement. And what it'll do is it'll put a summary at the bottom of the screen showing you the balance that is still owed to you from that vendor for that record. And you can go ahead and click in the edit to go back in there, look at the RMA item, and then contact the vendor if you need to in order to replace the item or get a return voucher for the amount that is for the cost of the item as a replacement. Let's go into the next item, which is the vendor screen. In this screen, you're going to be doing a new record for each new vendor that you're adding, and you'll fill in the information for that vendor. It's pretty clear what it is, the address, the contacts, and the phone numbers, and then comments about the vendor. And then over here, if you enter the address, this will automatically pop the address in the address field for the vendor for that particular area. And in this case, if I, for example, added the 8, it says error. I don't know why it would do that, but it's, let's see. Okay, it's trying to say that this field is not modifiable, and that means that it's supposed to be modified in the main record where you're adding it. So let's not try to do that in this screen. It's locked. And you would have, okay, in this case, if I put in the zip, in this case, it should go in there. I'm going to put 80036 and pop it, and it pops it over into that uneditable field. And now what will happen is you'll have the full address, and you can put commas in here if required. For example, you can go Phoenix and then put your comma in there, and what it's going to do is it's going to add the comma so that it looks proper as far as the address in the actual item. So those are the kind of things you can do. Now this is what is a combined list, and the reason I don't do this on the actual work order or order invoice is that if you try to put it in separate fields, it doesn't really come out nicely, and this actually makes it so it's a nice individually set thing with all the commas and everything, and looks proper on the actual order invoice. Okay, let's go down to the next thing, which is the list view for the vendors. If you have multiple vendors in here, you can either search for them if there's a lot of them, or you can click on this to say go ahead and find or edit this one, or show his website. With the website pasted in here and you click this, it'll open up their website, and that would open it up within the application so that you can see it if you're on an iPad or an iPhone without having to go outside the screen. And then we go ahead and say done down here in the corner to remove it. Let's go back to the very last item, which is the inventory type item, which is, I'll show you, this is that pop-up where you can actually edit in here. If you wanted to add a new record, you could go in here and say edit that, and then go ahead and add something in the blank space. I left a blank space in here so that if you had something and you didn't want to, and you're on an iPad and it's in a scroll list, and you wanted to take everything out of that field, you could use the empty field to go ahead and fill it back as a blank. Over here, you would start by adding a new record. No, you don't add a new record here. I'm sorry, yes you do. You add a new record by clicking add, and then you would edit it up in this area, and that would add the new item, and that would give you the new entry in here. You can modify these before you start using them to put them in there the way you want them. You would probably want to replace some of the ones I've in here, but once you start using something like admin services and you use it, do not edit it or do not remove it from the list, because that is what is actually filling the field within the area where it's used on the inventory screen. So do not remove that. Let's go ahead and now and conclude. If you have questions or you need assistance, you can get assistance by going to the drop down and going into the developer website and clicking here and start a chat, or you can use the email to email us to get your questions answered if you have any about anything that you saw within this video. Thank you.